The Curtain. It Begins by David T. Maddox. Read by Larry Williams. Introduction. We look not to the things that are seen, but to the things that are unseen. For the things that are seen are transient, but the things that are unseen are eternal. 2 Corinthians 4:18. Why me, or why not me, are questions which seem to pervade life for all of us. Much of what we face at times seems unfair and totally beyond our control. Often our best efforts are not enough, or we succeed when we know we should have failed. Is there some purpose at work in our lives beyond mere chance? Could there be something beyond our control, something of which we may be completely unaware, that influences the decisions we make and arranges the circumstances we face? If there were, that would provide the answer to much that cannot be explained in our lives. The Bible speaks of parallel worlds, one visible, the other invisible. They are said to exist separately, but not independently. We are told that in our lifetime we occupy the physical world, the place of flesh and blood. The other world is described as being spiritual and is inhabited by eternal beings invisible to us, who are in constant conflict over control of the physical world and those who live there. The frightening thing for us who live in the physical world is that if the Bible is true, the invisible can influence us and the events that affect our lives, without us even being aware of their activities. When we die, we leave the physical world and occupy our place in the spiritual world, having become one of the invisible. The answer to the question, what happens then, is beyond the subject of this book, although our story will picture some who make the transfer from one world to the next. For them the answer will be obvious, as will the reason for their future placement. The author asks that as you read this book, you be willing to assume that the Bible is true and that what it says about the visible and invisible is in fact the reality in which we live. You are invited to consider what you would see if the curtain which separates the visible from the invisible were suddenly opened, revealing the conflict, tactics, and methods of the opposing forces and how they actually impact your life. The reader is cautioned that although this is a work of fiction, it often crosses the line to truth, if what the Bible teaches is true, not in personalities or in the events described, but in how those events would be viewed if we could actually see everything that happened as it happened in both the visible and invisible worlds simultaneously. For those willing to search for the truth about what really affects their life, this book will be an adventure. As a reader, you will also no doubt find descriptions that may be personal, as your eyes are open to the forces said to be daily contesting over you. It is the author's hope that the events detailed herein and the character's response to those events will help you to better understand the biblical view of the reality of the world in which we live, so that if it is true, you can live in response to what is and not be a victim of what it only seems to be. Draw your own conclusions, but be open-minded to the reality of the invisible. It unquestionably exists and impacts everything we do.